Now, we are halfway through the month of June. You might know this month as the Pride Month, when people, of course, promote human rights for the LGBTQ community. But you know what else June is known for? Well, you might not, because it is something that we don't talk about very much, but today we should. Interestingly, June happens to be the Men's Mental Health Month. Men's mental health. And how many men have you come across who talk about their own mental health? Now, this is a topic that is often overlooked and is largely underrepresented and reported. Maybe that's why we need an entire month to recognize it. The stigma starts well in childhood. When little boys cry, they are told to stop being like a girl and they are told to be like a boy. If a boy hurts himself while playing, they are told to be brave about it. After all, many have in fact grown up listening to the Hindi movie dialogue, which says, and let me quote this in Hindi, and it says, "Mard ko dard nahi hota." It just means men don't feel pain. When years, of course, pass by and these little boys grow into teenagers, they are fed toxic standards of masculinity. These standards, along with lessons to internalize their pains and emotions, follow them into adulthood. They easily find friends to share beer. They watch football matches, but rarely does anyone vent over a box of tissues. Imagine men venting with a box of tissues. Now, our motive is not to draw sympathy for men here, but to acknowledge about the emotional quotient and the lack of emotional quotient in men. A lack of ability to regulate what they feel and express, to admit that men too go through mental trauma. And it is difficult for them to, in fact, come out and say this. Now, think about it yourself. Now, women have strong feminine friendships, one where they can have open conversations about their declining mental health. Now, if they don't have a Valentine, they celebrate what they call galentine. If they're low, they indulge in self-care or seek therapy. But how many men can actually openly come out and seek therapy in comparison with women? There is, of course, a clear gap in terms of the number of women who seek therapy and the number of men who actually admit to mental issues and seek therapy, because it's just not the manly thing to do. Now, according to a meta-analysis of 20 studies across the United States and across North America and Europe, only about 19.7% of men contacted a mental health professional in the year leading up to a suicide. That figure stood at about 35%, nearly 80% more in the case of women. So what happens when men do not get a healthy outlet for their emotions? Now, the trauma is something that they dump on their women friends, or they become overly dependent on their spouses. They get irritable and often violent. They're also more likely to turn to substance abuse and engage in some very risky behavior. Now, these are things that affect not just men, they also affect women equally. But the thing is, women find a way to vent these things out, but men bottle these issues up with them. In the United States of America, the suicide rate amongst men in 2021 was approximately 4 times higher than in the case of women. Men made up 50% of the population, but accounted for nearly about 80% of the suicides. Roughly 105 men die by suicide every single day. In Canada, men account for 3 out of 4 suicides. In the United Kingdom, the suicide rate amongst men is 3 times higher than it is in the case of women. On an average, 12 men kill themselves every single day. So what is the reason for this? Because men's mental health is still a taboo. It is not an easy thing to discuss. You'll hardly ever come across men who'd sit down with you and tell you as to how emotionally suppressed they are and about the mental challenges that they are going through, which is why this month, June, is such an important one for men's mental health awareness. Now, even talking about this for a lot of men would be extremely hard, but this is the reason why this month has, of course, been put in place for men to come out and to talk to people around them about the many issues that they are going through. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.